Thank you very much for having me, and great to be with you, and always enjoy a good Australian event that starts with respect for the Indigenous community. So I should note that I'm on the Chichenyo-speaking band of the Ohlone Indians here in California, in Northern California, across the bay from San Francisco, if you know it. And thank you, Joanna, for the introduction. My current job, and has been for a number of years, is to run something called New Energy Nexus, which is a global organization supporting entrepreneurs to succeed, diverse entrepreneurs driving innovation and trying to build equity into the clean energy transition as it grows around the globe. We started here in California and are very close partners of the state of California, which is, often considered a key economy in the commercialization of new ideas and technologies, and for good reason, obviously. And so have, some intimate experience with that work, at least in the clean energy space. But we run programs to support startups around the globe now, had over 40 such accelerators, incubators in a dozen countries last year. Since I've been here, we've backed about 880 startups and seen thousands of entrepreneurs through our doors in different ways, and put $50 million or more into them at very early stages. So have some sort of sense of the scope around the globe. And I'm not going to repeat a lot of the very important points that were made individually by the previous speakers, because I think they were all very valid and didn't disagree with any of them. I thought I'd just sort of make some more general overview comments from my perspective. I didn't say, but biographically, I'm strangely an American-born Australian. I was born in California, grew up in Sydney, came here and fell in love, and the rest is history, as they say. But I moved to the States from Sydney in 2006 to start my first company. And then, I've been in the renewable space here and around the world since then. And one of the things that stands out in that experience from Australia to California, which has this sort of hallmark of the entrepreneurial state, as I said, is sort of the big picture commitment. You're probably all familiar with the sort of flow chart of the IOOI, the inputs, outputs, outcomes, and impact we want in the world. And they're very clear in California. They want to produce game-changing industries. They want to, whether it's produce missiles that can beat the Soviets in the space race and the arms race, which is what was actually the progenitor of Silicon Valley, for those that don't know that history, or whether it's the clean energy economy, for which they entrust, tens of millions of dollars to include a 2045 law that says we'll be carbon neutral in this state, the fifth largest economy in the world, by 2045. They have an intent. And I think up the front of that IOOI framework, we should put intent. And Australia has vacillated, I would say at best, around what it wants to be in the world, like in the resource commodity economy, which is dominant in the Australian business world. We like to dig and ship. We don't necessarily like to value add and finish products and take them down a supply chain and value added process step. We are happy to literally ship rocks. The case in point that I think of in my business right now is Australia is the 800-pound gorilla in battery metals. Like it is clear in a way the most important country in the energy transition, in that it produces 60% of the world's lithium. It has a lot of nickel, cobalt, manganese, all the stuff we need to make the energy transition work. With the lithium, the 60%, which is a $200 billion market last couple of years, we get about $1 billion or $2 billion out of that, even though we produce more than half the raw materials. So we've been sort of happy just, being the lucky country endowed with these natural resources, but not intentionally saying we're going to build a supply chain and value chain downstream of that raw material endowment and perfect it and support the entrepreneurs and innovate. And without that intent, you can have all the IP rules and all the venture capital and all the rest that you think you need to put in. And I don't think it's going to go unless we as a nation stand up and say we want to do that. We can recall just in recent lived memory, Turnbull, when he was Prime Minister, launched the Innovation Nation commitments. I think Advance did a bunch of work with that. It lasted 6 months. Have we heard of that initiative since? Do we continue to support entrepreneurs from the top down for the long term? I'm not talking for a 6-month or a 12-month budget cycle. I'm not talking about $1 billion announcement. I'm talking about the nation state putting its treasure and its political will behind the success of the startups that we have aplenty because, as everyone said here, Australia has no shortage of great ideas and all the components of an ecosystem that will generate more ideas. I don't like talking about intellectual property because it's not about property and it's not about IP. It's about people and their ideas. And Australia punches above its weight. It's like it's in acting and sport and other things. It does a lot better than other 25 million person population countries in generating great ideas. But what it doesn't do is send them signals that they can succeed in Australia and then beyond. It says, take your great ideas and go offshore, kind of like we dig and ship rocks. We don't polish those products of our amazing public education systems, of our universities and research institutions and all the rest of it. So I think we need that intent. I think, the other thing I'll say, and apologies for running over time, but I think there are 4 inputs we're thinking about when we look at ecosystems. This is how we consider it in California, certainly. There's the ideas. They're important, but they're not what makes commercialization happen. There are people, they make commercialization happen. I think Ada said that commercialization is a non-linear exercise. That's absolutely true. It's a crazy maze. It's a solar coaster in the case of the renewables energy industry. It's a vomit-inducing twister, which any entrepreneur that puts themselves on is going to have to live through and survive. So it's about people. It's about money, obviously. We've got plenty of that in Australia. You've got a $5 trillion super pool that's sitting there investing in digging rocks and shipping them. Why aren't you getting your super funds, which you own as members, to invest in early stage entrepreneurs and commercializing their technologies? And then finally, it's demand. And that's one thing we don't have in high order in Australia. We are a small population, that is true. But we sit in Southeast Asia, which is a 700 million person population, going through an economic boom that makes history look, sort of silly compared to almost all other passages. Like those 700 million humans in Indo, in the Philippines, in Vietnam, Thailand, etc., are going through amazing changes for which Australia is very well positioned to supply knowledge services, all sorts of innovations, technology we could make, as well as commodities and raw materials and soft commodities and the like. So we can source the demand if we focus on the people. I'll stop there and look forward to the conversation. Thanks.